I covered the absolute meltdown of idiotic journalists a little bit on yesterday's video after the verdict of Johnny Depp's defamation trial came down. Though that video was a bit all over the place, and I apologize for that. There wasn't a lot of structure to that one since my brain was a bit all over the place itself. More so than usual, I mean. Again, sorry about that. Now, as far as the topic of the meltdown of all these mainstream morons after Johnny Depp was finally vindicated, I figured I'd go over that a bit more in today's video because it was a little bit broader than I pointed out yesterday. Obviously, you had that idiotic column from that week-old used condom known as Vice, which I commented on and did a rather piss-poor job, in my opinion, tearing it down. Mostly because they were points that I was going over and talking about when I read out Amber Heard's statement after the fact, I think. It gets old having to say the same exact thing 15,000 times. It's like talking to children, for real. What you really have here is a bunch of people that are pissed off and scared that the narrative that they've been pushing for years now is being shattered. This isn't a new idea, and it isn't just coming from me either. It's been coming from people like Tim Pool, Jeremy from the Quartering, among others, and was even trending on Twitter yesterday. These are just a small sampling of the number of tweets that included the hashtag, which numbered in the thousands. Well, this one was from May 20th, but she does bring up a good point about Brendan Fraser coming out about his own experiences with being sexually assaulted, and how he was basically laughed out of the room and lost actual roles because of it. Which is honestly just sickening to me. Then there's this one, talking about male victims again. And this girl, Ada, actually brings up a pretty good point that I can rather get behind. Talking about how the Me Too movement shouldn't be thought of as dead, but rather the whole Believe All Women movement should be. Like I said, I agree with the sentiment behind that. However, you have to remember that those two hashtags went together when the whole thing was coming out. You never saw the one without the other, so they've been kind of inseparable to most people's minds. Not only that, but the ACLU, the founder of the Time's Up organization, which I believe was part and parcel of Me Too, and Amber Heard herself, as the so-called ambassador for the Me Too movement, have all done incredible damage to it, through their words and actions. While I myself backed the movement much like this dude when it first came out because I thought that was a good thing, over the years it stopped being about victims of abuse and violence raising their own voices, and it became a weapon to use against someone you didn't like for one reason or another. I mean, hell, look what happened just recently with Elon Musk. He starts becoming a thorn in the side of the powerful, putting out messages the establishment doesn't like, and suddenly, like magical clockwork, he's Me Too'd. So, like I said, while I agree with the sentiment behind her words, I can't bring myself to do anything but celebrate the fact that the verdict yesterday may have destroyed a movement that seems to have done more harm than good. But back to my original point, being that these articles and tweets and Instagram posts and all that shit coming out from the likes of window lickers like Anita Sarkeesian here are just these fuckos trying to retain the power that they've enjoyed these last 6 years or so. I mean, we can accuse idiots like Vice or Sarkeesian of not watching the trial all we want. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't, I can't know. However, even if they did, that doesn't mean that they were ever going to agree with the verdict because it undercuts their chosen narrative. A narrative, might I add, that's been quite lucrative for a lot of people over the years. Again, like Anita Sarkeesian, who's made a metric buttload of money through her chosen grit of all the misogyny and sexism in the video game sphere. And mainstream media machines like Vice, or Vox, or Kotaku, or the Mary Sue, or Screen Rant, or a bajillion other sites that have pushed this narrative, and so many others, in order to get their outrage clicks so that they can sell ad space. It's not only that either. All the preponderance of evidence in the world isn't going to make these assholes come out and admit that they were wrong. How many of them have come out and done that even when all the evidence showed them that they were wrong? Has anybody come out and apologized to the New York Post recently? How about Kyle Rittenhouse? When he wasn't threatening to sue them over it, I mean. Have either Warner Brothers or Disney come out yet and apologized to Johnny Depp? I mean, they've had well over a day now. I wouldn't hold my breath expecting them to come out and apologize tomorrow, or the next day, or the next week, month, or year. Why? Because that's the other reason they're acting like this. If they admitted they were wrong, well, they'd be admitting that they were wrong, and they just can't do that. So they do shit like this instead. Now, I don't have a screen grab of the original tweet because I couldn't find it, but this will do. It's a grab from this Daily Mail article that I took a look at. So this. This is an example of the mental gymnastics they have to do to convince themselves they weren't wrong. This is also an amazing example of why words like racism and sexism no longer hold any real meaning or weight anymore. That jury was composed of all kinds of people, not just white men. This wasn't To Kill a Mockingbird, and we're not in the early 20th century anymore. It wasn't composed of just white men. So how in the actual fuck was the jury racist or sexist? Also, Amber was a white woman, in case you missed that part, and according to the narrative popular with window lickers like whomever wrote this tweet, it's not possible to be racist against white people. Now, I personally disagree with that sentiment. Racism is racism, regardless of who it's directed at, but that's not my belief. That's yours. The person who wrote the tweet, I mean. So, how were they racist? Exactly. Which, I suppose, is a nice segue into this amazing article here. Again, read through the archive because I'm not giving any of these racist, race-baiting assholes any of my clicks. The article basically opens up by going into all those things that Amber Heard claimed Johnny Depp did to her, speaking about the supposed sexual assault and physical violence that she allegedly suffered at his hands. Claims, might I add, that were pretty thoroughly debunked from what I've seen both during the trial and over the past 2 years, such as the headbutts and broken nose that were mystically gone by the time she had to go on the James Corden show 12 hours later. For real, no amount of makeup is covering up the swelling from a broken nose, you stupid fucks. Then there's this. Some even believed Depp when he said that she was the aggressor. Absolutely. Why? Proof, that's why. We heard her say she physically assaulted him. Multiple times. He had his own pictures and his own injuries to attest to that fun fact. I mean, the bitch severed his fucking finger with a bottle. What more do you want? Then she talks about all these black women who've been abused over the years, like Tina Turner or Rihanna. I mean, I've heard some black comedians making Ike and Tina jokes over the years, sure, but nobody called them liars. Most often any jokes were making fun of the dude for being a bitch and hitting a woman. At least that was always my takeaway. As far as R. Kelly jokes, obviously that was taken very seriously. Didn't the dude go through 2 trials and finally get convicted late last year? Now, if I'm recalling correctly, because I know you're trying to make this about racism, because you're garbage race-baiting website, but weren't both of those trials occupied by a bunch of black people protesting R. Kelly's innocence and, much like you all, trying to make it all about racism? I mean, I know I did a video on that when he finally got convicted, so I don't think I'm wrong. So who's making your pain into punchlines exactly, and how does this remotely have anything to do with Amber Heard? Because morosisms? I think what the author of this article really needs is to be told simply this. It's not always about you. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. But, like I was saying, this is another prime example of these people's mental gymnastics in order to keep their narrative going. They will even claim that the verdict for Johnny Depp and against Amber Heard is about the racisms. Fucking pathetic. As always, these are just my opinions and nothing more. If you'd like to give me your opinion, you can do so in that handy section down below. While you're down there, the mainstream media lost their integrity a long time ago. If you see it down there, you might give it back to them. If, for some ungodly reason, you like my stupid opinions, you can get more of them and other types of content by crushing those like and subscribe buttons. Like a goblin. If you made it through this video intact, I want to give you a goblin hug. I'll see you all tomorrow for an anime review and probably some FNT. See you then. Lates.